Welcome to our first ever tweet meet with Rabobank and Microsoft. I'm Cara Antoine, Director of Marketing and Operations at Microsoft the Netherlands, and I am your moderator for today's tweet meet. Today, we'll have a conversation about artificial intelligence in the world of digital transformation. Why is it so important to have a digital strategy? And what will AI bring to your organization and customers? Well, we're going to get to talk about that today with Microsoft's Executive Vice President and President of Global Sales, Marketing and Operations, Jean-Philippe Courtois, and also joining Rabobank's Paul Schram, the Global Head of Merger and Acquisition. And we'll have a conversation with both of them today on these topics, and you'll get to take part in that discussion by tweeting your questions and top-of-mind thoughts to them as well. So to get started, Jean-Philippe, can I turn to you so that we can have a discussion today about digital strategy and what that means in the organization?
Sure, Cara, thanks. And thanks, Paul, for joining us as well. So I'd love certainly to ask you a couple of questions.
That's fine.
On the way you see, behind growth strategy, but also business strategy of companies, or do you see CEOs of many of your clients thinking about digital as a component of their transformation or business strategy? Is it a big deal? Is it something that matters to your clients?
Oh yes, of course. It's very much it's a big deal. It's a very big deal, I think. It's only since a few years that we started to realize and see it actually in M&A as well.
Yeah.
So where digital may have been on the operating floor already very, very important, strategically increasingly important, we can now see it also driving mergers and acquisitions to some extent.
And what do you see that as actually making a difference in terms of companies' success? I mean, do you go all the way to discussing that digital capabilities in the business of your clients to be more successful?
Interestingly, not yet.
Okay.
But I'm very much focused on creating the awareness with our teams to start thinking about it and to start looking at our customers to the extent as to their success in digital transformation. And also, to the extent it might impact their strategy to make changes, to make acquisitions maybe, to support their own digital transformation, or it may make them vulnerable if they lag behind.
Yeah, I must say, Paul and Cara, something I see as well with private equities firms in particular, as they are acquiring some businesses, they are more and more building those common digital capabilities to transform the business they buy to be even more successful. That's why I was intrigued by the M&A's motion you have.
Yeah, well, I have had discussions with some of the private equity players as well, and I'm asking them. I said, do you have those capabilities in-house? And for now, it's mostly one of the partners says, well, I've taken it as my role.
Personally.
Yeah, my personal role to look at how digital transformation may impact the portfolio companies.
Yes.
Reality is that they still need a lot of stuff to learn and to, I think, to hire people that are more attuned to it, because it's not historically something that these private equity managers have developed themselves. Yeah. So it is something which is on their mind, and I think they are recruiting specialists. And sometimes it's on a case-by-case basis.
Yes.
So they would find experts in the field, but I think increasingly they will be considering to hire their own digital expert to have it in-house.
So it's something we'd love to help. So
I'm sure you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that would lead to another question that we may have is, so what is the impact that we see on this digital strategy and transformation having on employees in our organizations?
Well, I see it as a great opportunity. What I try to do is to implement digital tools to help them to reduce the time that they sort of waste on low value activities, to be able to focus much more on our client needs and to respond faster, to have more frequent contact. So for me it is a means to become much more proactive as well to clients and be more efficient and smarter about things.
Yeah, just to give some other perspective as well, Paul and Cara, we certainly see a big role played by what we call the modern workplace, new ways of working. And as a company, we've been building that collaborative platform to enable a new culture to transform, because many of those companies want to change the way they work. They want to mobilize their people differently. And so this is a way where, collaboration services like Teams and others can help achieving more, working very differently. Another big aspect, I think, is really AI, the way we all together can infuse artificial intelligence in the core processes of the businesses and the way people work. And as a company, we have a vision where we believe that AI should augment people's ingenuity and capabilities, not replacing them, but actually extending or going to the higher value type of services they can provide. So love to hear from you, Paul, if you see some of that as well happening with some of your clients and your business yourself.
Well, I think in banking at Rabobank, we are, I think, relatively advanced in some parts of the bank, but like many of our competitors and peers, we have been a bit slower in adopting it in our wholesale banking business. I am in mergers and acquisitions, and in mergers and acquisitions, it might be sort of at the end of the bottom of the priority list, to be honest. So I've decided to take a more proactive stance and see what we can do and how we can apply artificial intelligence to work smarter and to be more responsive to our client needs. So I think it's starting, but it's early days in wholesale banking.
Yeah, well, I think we will see a lot more. We see a lot of AI coming your ways in terms of risk management, fraud detection, but also very smart analysis on portfolio of companies and the assets valuation and all that stuff. So I think there's a lot more we can hopefully help on with.
I hope so. There might be a future where artificial intelligence may help me to tell me which companies are the ones that are likely to come up for sale,
The right
or
targets.
that would the right targets, or would help me who the most logical buyer would be.
Yes.
Right now, there's still very much sort of man's work, but I'm sure that artificial intelligence is going to help us in the future.
Yeah, and I think so as well. And we recently have done a report in the marketplace with EY, with Ernst & Young, and we were looking at companies and the impact of artificial intelligence and what that really meant. And the results were telling us that the companies that are most advanced now in artificial intelligence are the ones that have built a sound data strategy. And so I think if we consider our own customers, what do you see now is the impact of and the opportunity of artificial intelligence and having a sound data strategy in this digital transformation era? How do you see that impacting our customers?
Well, we at Rabobank, we serve mostly the people in the food chain, so companies in the food chain. And we see a great opportunity to be a platform company in that ecosystem of the food chain, where we would like to be the service provider that is collecting raw data and providing intelligent, smarter data and data analytics back to partners and customers. We have a mission, growing a better world together, but growing a better world together is with our partners and customers. And we think that sharing that information or sharing data in a smart way could be the way forward for us to reach our mission.
I think, Paul, you're right, and I see, Cara, many examples across industries. Actually, at the core of this value chain of farmers all the way to consumers' goods products, there's a lot technology can do to trace all the way from the milk in the green field and the quality of that cow and how much time it's spending outside in the greens to get a healthy milk all the way to consumers and across the distribution chain and so on. And so we've been instrumenting that through blockchain technologies, an IoT stack all the way to enable that. Actually, we have a great example from a packaging perspective with Tetra Pak, which is a company doing that, as you know, super well, and with predictive scenarios on basically the assembly lines, to make sure that they manufacture the right packaging and then they get that bottle of milk in the right condition at the right time.
Yes. Of course, it's not just producing more food, but we need to get it to the consumer without waste. So and to grow it in a sustainable manner.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think some of the focus has maybe been very much on the rural business, as in the smarter farming, but in the end, to get it from the farm to the consumer while reducing waste along the way is, of course, what we all aim for. And hopefully technology will help us do this.
Yeah. I think these are great examples, and well, as I think you just said yourself too, Paul, we can go further when we do things together. So actually it's time to turn to the people that are on this tweet meet with us.
Let's do this.
And hear some of the questions that they may have. And I see that some questions are coming through here already. So let me ask first, Paul, to you, if I may. So what are the most important learning that you have had based on all the conversations that you've been having with companies and other customers around the world?
Well, my learning is that it's really a top priority for many companies where I didn't expect it to be a top priority. Sometimes it feels like a low-tech sector, and suddenly it turns out to be high-tech, and it turns out that technology is actually making a real difference, even as far as introducing new business models. So I think it's very much top of mind for all of our customers, all the large customers. And we see a lot of startups and scale-ups and disruptors becoming active as well, which is just very interesting to see. So I think it's top of mind, and it should be.
And Jean-Philippe, what are you hearing?
Well, I think what I'm hearing a lot, I was in Brazil, Mexico last week, in the Netherlands today, and in some other place of the world next week. It all starts with cultural transformation, actually. It's very interesting. When you talk to not just CIOs, CTOs, but CEOs and CFOs of large companies, they are all intrigued by what it's going to take to change the way they work as a company, their culture. So it starts with that, which is a big deal, by the way. It's all about change management, which is something that people very much underestimate. Then you go into the business envisioning, which is really the business strategy. What do you want to achieve differently, given the fact that technology can disrupt your business already or might come to your business? And number 3 is technology. So technology comes after you enable the culture, after you are super clear about the business outcomes you want to drive, and then you build what you call the tech intensity, which is really the usage well applied of that cloud platform, AI, blockchain, whatever, that is really uniquely suited for your needs to disrupt the business of others and add value to your customers. So that's the way I see it happening in many clients. And it's not an easy journey, by the way. So there's a lot we need to do along the side of the customer with some partners to make that happen.
Yeah, and I love this idea of the tech intensity. So looking at what's already available and how you can leverage that in your own strategy, and then building on top of that to really amplify the capabilities. So there's some more questions coming in. So let me ask you the next question, and maybe Jean-Philippe will start again with you. So how do we educate people in the future on the value of money when everything is digital?
Oh, the value of money. It's a very profound question for a banker in particular.
It's awesome.
But I mean, I may give it a shot. I mean, it's a very interesting question in a sense, because if you think about all the, I would say, the new services flowing always, right? Not just in Western Europe and US, but actually you go to Asia. It's pretty amazing. You go to China to see that people are not using any more credit cards almost. Cash is kind of gone, except in some villages you still have some cash. It's all the electronic wallets you have on a number of e-commerce platforms that are really on your phones and your mobile experience all the time. So the money has dematerialized in a way that is just amazing, incredible. In a way, I mean, China is ahead of us in that sense of that dematerialization. And I think here and there we see that depending on both the maturity of the businesses, the maturity as well of the ecosystem, and the mindset and the culture of the way the financial community works with the businesses as well, you may have different learning curves. I'm sure, Paul, you have deeper insight into that as you are at the core of that system.
Yeah, no, but also talking about the value of money, and you can interpret it in different ways. Yes, a lot will be digital, but for now, I would see digital also predominantly as an enabler to do business and to be smarter, to be more efficient. So in a way, it's a way to create value, and everyone can define value in different ways. It might be money, it might be growing a better world together, it might be anything that you choose to. But digital is in the end, at least for me, it's an enabler to be successful.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. So we're active on social media right now. So here's another question to pose, maybe starting with you, Jean-Philippe, on this question. So digital transformation is giving great opportunities to improve accessibility.
Yeah.
So how do we make the world more accessible for everyone?
No, it's a very great question. I think a great opportunity we have. I mean, all of us. I mean, it's not just tech companies, by the way, enterprise, government, and so on, to truly use some amazing new set of services, like what we call cognitive services. I was actually in Mexico last week, and I was in Australia a few weeks ago, and I got to meet with a number of people that basically have pretty big, handicaps when it comes to basically having lost their their sight, and so the blind people or people in a case of losing their sight. It's amazing to see the experiences you can actually augment for those people using apps with a rendering and an understanding of the environment where they walk and where they navigate, to describe to them who is coming next to them, to describe to them the coffee shop, to describe to them the experiences going on, so that they actually can connect with that environment. Where in the past, they were obviously, in that warring environment to go walking and ignoring places that they would never go to. So it's one example among many. That's an application called Soundscape, and there's many others we've seen happening where we as a company, we are very passionate, and we're actually running an initiative called AI on Accessibility to enable a lot of those new applications to be available for communities, for citizens, for enterprise, to enable very diverse talents actually to do their best work. Because reality, in the world, you got 10% of people with some kinds of handicaps, 10%. And you got to count on those talents too. So I think this is where technology can help.
Yeah, I think 1 billion people on the planet, according
Correct.
to the World Health
Correct.
Organization, right? Yes. And I recently had an opportunity to use one of those apps, Seeing AI, with an individual who had lost most of her vision, and we were using one of the screens to look at the different colors that objects might be, and pointed the app at a color, and it gave a response, and she said, I never knew that color was called green.
Yes.
And it really shows profoundly how that can impact someone's life.
Yes.
Paul, how do you see this from a banking perspective in terms of what AI can mean for accessibility?
I just wanted to say we are just bankers. We are just a financial institution trying to serve client needs. But for us, what we do know is that the reason why people choose for a financial institution is the ease of doing business. And if technology provides an easy access to financial institutions, whether it is through apps or different ways, I think it's going to be supportive of people trying to connect with the financial community. So in that way, I can see it to be supportive. But I think it's a much bigger question that fits Microsoft much better than me.
Yeah. Well, Paul, that would follow a question, I think, from me and from our viewers today. So how do you see the bank of the future?
It's a very good question. I was part of a small project team that has to come up with a strategy 2025 for the wholesale bank. So I've been digging into it a little bit, and there is different scenarios, and some are very frightening, where we are disintermediated, and some are a bit more mellow. And of course, we like to focus on the ones where we think that there is a very interesting future for us, which I think there is. So of course, there will be functions that will be very much affected in a negative way from our perspective in terms of what we can do, where technology may take away some of the need for financial institutions. But there is a lot of advisory work that still has to be done, where direct client contact continues to be critical. And I think the area where I am is hopefully part of that. We very much rely still on direct client contact. So the way how I see it is that technology will help us to be smarter and to be faster and more proactive in our activities. And I would love to have a chatbot to be my next best friend, giving me the next best action, right? So to be a good service provider. So I think there's going to be a exciting future, and there is some frightening aspects to it, where we need to be at the forefront and to grab the opportunity with both hands to see what we can do with it. Because as long as you are ahead of the rest, or you are a front runner, then at least you can explore what the opportunities are. And I'm sure there will be many. But it will also allow us for new business models, which we still need to invent. But it's a great focus. And it's uncertain, but I think it has threats, but it certainly has a lot of opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jean-Philippe, maybe a question to ask to you would be, so what is then the first step in an organization that they should take to embark on the journey of digitizing their organization?
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to that, Cara, early on. I really mean it, which is what are the attributes of your culture as a company that could be blockers to change your destiny? Meaning where you want to go, there's probably a number of ways of doing things differently versus where you are. So I think there's a first step, which is very in a way, self-reflective, but also looking at the world of your customers, your competition, going your ways, understanding are we actually well equipped or prepared from a mindset perspective to go there. You know, as Microsoft, we went into, and we're still going through that kind of a, I would say, cultural change where we've been adopting the, what we call a growth mindset, which is we are pushing hard on ourselves to be a culture of learning it all as opposed to I know it all already. And so that push our people to learn, to test, to fail, to learn a lot of new stuff to help better our customers. I think to me that's the very first step. And then, as I said, I think understanding the business of our customers deeply by spending quality time with them along their side, and really trying to then digitize with their best people the core processes, the way they build products, services, business models, operations, is the best ways, I think, to go at scale on transformation. But it takes two to tango, as we said. So it needs the customer to be well, I would say, aligned on that business vision, where tech and technology enablement is a part of it only. But the cultural transformation is a big deal, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love what you talk about, Jean-Philippe, the growth mindset and being a learn-it-all.
Yep.
And so out of that, we have learning. And so perhaps you could talk a little bit also about what are some of the things we have learned, and maybe tips to the audience of what should you avoid doing that might not be helping you in your digital journey.
I don't know if I want to lecture anyone on that, but I think each one of us has to do their own learning. I think in our case, we certainly learn as what we used to be a software company. If you are evolving to be more of a digital company, in our case, a cloud-first company, you need to have a customer obsession. You need to start with that. You need to really start understanding the way the business is run of that bank, of Rabobank, great customer, and how you can help them in a way they're going to do risk management, they're going to do hedging, they're going to do treasury, whatever are the core functions, and where technology can really help to really break through or make a big difference, either in terms of the economics or in terms of innovation to surprise the marketplace and be a leading company in the marketplace. So I think the learning is, unless you try, you'll never know. So I think you have to be very honest with your teams, with your customers about what you know and what you don't know yet. Be explicit about it, but being also incredibly intentional about the stages and about how far do you want to go and push yourselves on learning. And that's I think takes a lot of the leadership attention as well, to encourage the people, to coach them, to reward them, and to make sure they understand it's the right way to grow and to keep going.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. And I think we have time for a closing thought from both of you, and then we'll be ending this tweet meet for today. Paul, may I start with you, and any other thoughts that you could share around artificial intelligence and the impact of the digital strategy in your company?
Yeah, I will, but maybe just on this last point about the culture as well. I think if you think of banks, it has been just a few years ago where risk and compliance were very much restricting the speed at which technology was adopted. And there was a general fear for public cloud as well. And I think that has shifted. So at Rabobank, I think we are shifting to public cloud. But also now very much the business, like myself, is involved in applying developing technology and look at the functionality that we need from a business perspective. So I think the culture shift has definitely happened, at least with Rabobank, and we're in the middle of it. And partly it is also to put the leadership in place and have board members in place with a specific role around innovation and the transformation that we want to go through. And for me, it includes myself, as I try to lead by example. And I know that it requires training and it requires trying and failing and trying again. But I do know that without trying, you don't get there. So we're very much focused on trying to get the leadership in place, train the people, create the awareness, create a desire for everyone to be part of it, to then actually develop it in a way that we can serve our clients better.
Okay, thank you. And Jean-Philippe, do you have a final comment that you'd like to
Well,
share?
a very quick one, I would say, it's an amazing time, I think, where we can all, as individuals, as companies, learn from each other. Technology being an enabler of that, a conduct of that learning. I think at the end of the day, I would say, talking with many clients going through massive transformations, you don't dictate the change, you have to not just lead the change, you have to be the change. And I think, I always refer to that quote from Tolstoy. He used to say, Tolstoy, this Russian author, everyone wants to think about changing the world, everyone, but no one wants to think about changing himself. And I think it's so true. And so I think whenever you want to think about changing your business, your company, look at yourself in your mirror. Are you ready to go for some real deep experiences in changing yourself? Ready to go or not? That would be my conclusion.
That's fantastic. So be the change you want to see.
Yes.
And Jean-Philippe and Paul, thank you both so much.
Thank you,
And
Paul.
yeah, to the audience as well. Hey, thank you for tuning in for today's Tweet Meet with Rabobank and Microsoft. And we hope that you found that inspirational today. And let's continue the conversation online. We'll see you there.